not just about preparing our individual children for the school setting, but actually preparing the setting of the school environment and mindsets to include our children. This is Let's Talk Earliers, the podcast, and I am Melanie Karim, your host. In studio with me today, chatting about school readiness and inclusivity and inclusion. Welcome in studio, Letitia Petrie.
Yes.
All the way from Johannesburg, South Africa.
Yes.
My fellow countrymen. Yeah? What brings you to the desert?
So I moved straight out of university to Dubai with my now husband. So we came to Dubai looking for opportunities to excel in our careers. And I think being in South Africa, I was qualified as an occupational therapist. Coming to the UAE, it was at that time quite difficult for me to get into the occupational therapy field just because it was so limited to certain areas of occupational therapy. So I really saw the value of taking my occupational therapy into the early years education field. So I started in a teacher's assistant role, teacher's role, working myself up to a special needs coordinator, and now as an inclusion specialist for multiple nurseries. So it's been quite a journey, and I feel my background, my experience in all the different elements of early years really gave me a nice perspective of the challenges that we currently have in early years and the opportunity for me to kind of do something and help where I can and to support in implementing a lot of things that I can see from my perspective really is needed in the early years field. So that's kind of a little bit about my journey and where I am now. Yes.
I think the early years community certainly is grateful for you and for your expertise. It's very seldom that we find that the specialists that support the industry are actually trained educators. So you bring a wonderful introspection into everything you do because of your experience in the setting. So
and I love sharing the knowledge with people and helping them see things also from a different perspective.
Yes.
As we know, earlier educators are not fully trained in that medical kind of background.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
It really helps to give them a bit more insights on children's behavior, on their development. So I really enjoy doing this.
I love that. I can feel your energy.
Yeah.
Letitia, we can find you on Instagram, yeah?
Yes, on Instagram I recently started just a little account for myself just to share some of my knowledge, my experiences. So it's called Inclusive Beginnings. So if anyone would like to follow that, I provide some insights for parents, educators, and it's a lot of focus on development and things that a mum, dad, educator, early years practitioners can do to support children, especially in the early years that we both know is so crucial.
Yes, I've been following and I love your content. So again, just thank you for your time and your investment into our community.
Yes.
Today we're talking school readiness.
Yes.
Oh my, it's actually that time of the year. It's our parent-teacher meetings.
Yes.
Reports are going out. Schools are asking for transfer certificates. There's a lot going on.
Yes.
And at the heart of it all, I feel, and you can correct me, is academic performance.
It is, definitely. There is a big focus on this. And I do feel that school readiness, the true definition of it is sometimes lost in translation.
How so?
Where a lot of the focus is on those academic skills, and I feel like a lot more focus should be given to the holistic development of a child. I do feel that social emotional development plays such an important role for any child, as we are preparing them for school. And this is sometimes an area that's not emphasized enough. So looking at the child's social emotional development, their cognitive development.
Let's go back
Yeah.
to socio-emotional development. What does that look like as in, say, in the first 0 to 3 years?
Yes.
Because I find that a lot more children are entering FS1 from the nursery school and not actually doing their FS1 and FS2, their foundation years in the nursery setting. So in those first 3 years, how are we preparing them for school?
Yeah, so I think a lot of effort should be given to supporting children when they are separating from their parents at this age. So giving them that safe environment where they're able to come to school, they're able to let go of their parents and have confidence in those situations.
Yes. So I think this is a moment where we can pause actually.
Yes.
And really impress upon educators that it's not just about getting them into the setting and getting on with the program that we've created or doing the activities in our routine for the day, that actually these children need to come in and actually feel emotionally secure before we can teach them anything.
Yes, and this is actually one thing that I feel educators often miss. And it's not intentional, it's more they are very pressured
and
to
task
do all
orientated,
these things, that they often forget to just sit, get down on the child's level, play with them, connect with them. And when they get that sense of safety, that sense of belonging with you, that's when they're truly going to become excited about learning, excited about doing activities. And you're going to see this play over into all the different elements of their development. And naturally, they're going to start to learn. They're going to start to get their academic skills, their cognitive skills.
Agree.
Yeah, so I feel this is really important in those first 3 years. Just building that connection with children, truly understanding them, what drives them, what's their interests, where can you help them, what strengths can you build on. So this is really crucial, I feel, in those early years.
You said the true definition of school readiness is a little bit lacking in its definition.
Yes, it is.
So again, I'm saying it's got to do with academic skills from our perception.
Yes.
You can expand for me a little bit more. How can we broaden school readiness to be inclusive?
I do really think that this is where we have to create a lot of awareness. Not only for educators, but for parents as well. It's very important for them to understand. There was actually a study by the British Professional Association for Childcare and Education where they asked some teachers and some parents how they feel academic skills play a role in school readiness. And actually 4% of the teachers said that they feel this is not something that should be focused on, where parents said 25% of them feel this is really important. So I think just creating that awareness that school readiness it's a all-encompassing thing.
Holistic, as you mentioned.
It's not just the academic skills. The academic skills, like I know a lot of parents will tell you, can my child count yet? Can they identify the alphabet? These aren't really academic skills. It's more memorization of skills.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of awareness needs to go into this. When parents enter the nursery, we need to prepare them for what this means. And
I want to say this opens an opportunity for us to have those parent coffee mornings.
Yes,
those parent training sessions, those webinars, and also to implore our parents to attend those information sessions so that we strengthen the partnership between school and home for the benefit of their children.
Yes, no, definitely.
Cognitive skills.
Cognitive skills as well. So cognitive skills, we're looking at, are we supporting the children's curiosity, their creativity? Are we supporting them, their problem-solving skills? So building on these from a young age is so important because it's not only needed for school readiness. Children are going to need this throughout their lives.
Right.
So again.
But I mean, when you speak about problem-solving skills, this is the foundation of mathematics.
Yes.
This is the foundation of coping in environments, in large environments like the school setting.
Yeah.
So I hear you that actually we are focusing in the nursery school as a modem for school readiness on those key skills.
Yes.
As opposed to actually the doing.
Yes.
We want to focus on the skills that prepare them for the doing.
Yeah,
Am
so
I
those
correct?
foundational skills, the skills that we're putting things in place for them to actually succeed in these skills.
Yes.
And that is what we're focusing on in the early years.
Right.
And this needs to continue into school. It's an ongoing process.
Right.
Yeah.
So we also speak about we're preparing these children. We're putting so much emphasis and so much time in preparing them for school. How can schools be prepared for our children?
And this is also a very good question and something that is debated a lot about on that we are focusing a lot on preparing children for school, but are schools ready to receive them? So I do feel this is a dual responsibility with schools and nurseries, and also to include parents in this, because we're all part of the children's life.
It's a partnership.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we all need to build on these skills together. So parents should also be working on the same skills at home. We should be working on those foundational skills, like we said in nursery. But it's also important for schools to notice that not all children are going to be ready when they step into their setting on day one.
Right.
So what are they going to put in place to be able to support those children?
Right. So I'm hearing you allude to perhaps that transition.
Yes.
Between nursery and school.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
So, in all honesty, at the moment, this is an area that I feel we could build on more. There's not a lot of schools that will come to nurseries and ask us, what are the challenges we might be facing for the children that are about to transition into school. And, schools have that kind of set list of criteria that children need to be potty trained. They have to have certain knowledge skills. So they also need to understand from our perspective as a nursery what challenges we are facing and how they can possibly help in overcoming those in that
to
transition.
be more inclusive.
Yes. And I think then those transitions are going to be more smoother. So that communication between school and nursery is really essential. And I feel this is an area we need to work on. It does not happen often.
Yes.
We often just receive this little list, and we feel pressure that we need to push children to meet these certain criteria.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of pressure from parents.
Yes, absolutely.
Because they want to get their children into school.
Yeah.
So I do feel a lot of conversations need to be
Yes,
had
yes.
about this.
I
in
feel
order
also
to,
that, this is for the nursery managers and the teams, the marketing teams, perhaps if you're part of a bigger group of nursery schools, that those partnerships with the bigger schools.
yes.
Actually creating those partnerships, having the visits,
Yes.
where you're able to take your foundation stage children to visit the school setting and take your parents along, to visit the school settings and see what it looks like.
Yes.
I think they also, parents can make an informed decision as to whether their child would adequately cope in the bigger environment. I'm talking
Yes.
about the physical
Yes,
environment
yes.
of the school setting. I think it can be really overwhelming and daunting for little ones, perhaps, Some children, you throw them in and they thrive, and for others, it could be really, really daunting to have this building and all of these people, all of these children in this space. So sometimes it would really benefit our parents to go out there and really make a decision to see if their individual child would thrive in the bigger school setting, or if perhaps they could wait a while longer
Yeah.
and keep them in the nursery school. Of course, I'm an advocate,
Yes.
for keeping them in the nursery school
Yeah.
for as long as possible. It's such a safe environment,
Yes.
it's such a small, cozy, meaningful connection sort of environment. So I'm a fierce advocate, for keeping children in the
Yes.
nursery for longer. But again, parents are unique, family structures are unique, and so we would leave that decision up to them, of course. But I think
Yes.
making that informed decision about where your individual child would fit
Yeah.
is profound.
Yeah, it does all come down to that communication. And like you said, having them actually come and visit the nursery. I know a lot of schools are actually starting to do this,
Yes.
where the teachers will come and meet them in the nursery.
Yes.
But I think definitely more emphasis should be put on this transition. And I think it will help schools and nurseries to understand the transition better,
Yeah.
and then to better support parents and the children.
I also say to parents, Letitia, even before they join the nursery school, that have the conversation with your child.
Yeah.
Let them know where they're going. Let them know, give them the information and respect them as individuals, that you're not just going to bring them by the hand on Monday morning and drop them off at this place and expect them to thrive. We need to
Yes.
respect our children and respect their feelings. So
Yes.
having a conversation and letting them know, that you're going to the nursery or you're going to school. And I learned something in my years of experience, that we never refer to school as big school.
Yeah.
Because the word is a little bit daunting, the word
Yes.
big, that we would just say
It's
that,
creating this expectation.
yes, that we would say you're going to school, but to have that ongoing conversation so that the idea and the concept solidifies within them, so that socio-emotionally they're better able to cope on that actual day with that actual transition.
Yes, and this is where it's so needed for parents to understand that they also play such an important role in the school readiness of their children. Like you said now, they also need to be preparing them, chatting to them about these changes, and supporting their emotional development in the home environment. Yes.
So, Letitia, can the child be ready if the environment is not ready?
For me, I don't think so. With school readiness, it's not a destination, it is an ongoing development. So there's always going to be an area that a child might need more support in. And if that setting that they'll be stepping into is not ready to support them, they are going to have challenges in that transition. So it is important that we don't only focus on whether each child is ready, but that the environment that they go to will be able to support them if needed.
Is there ever a risk that inclusion efforts in the school setting are performative and less transformative in the school settings?
Yeah, early years, definitely. I feel there's a lot of policies in place for schools where they have to have certain provision in place, where early years it's developing and taking a lot of motion at the moment.
Yes.
But there is still a lot of elements lacking, and this often then looks like settings have the appearance of inclusivity, but they don't put the full in-depth work into their inclusion, where they're actually changing their policies or offering their educators training. So you often then don't see that change that you want to see with inclusion. I think if you want inclusion to be more transformative, it has to be in all the elements of the school. And that's when change is truly going to happen, and children are going to be making progress. It's not just the surface level
yes.
where, for example, there's the reception has a few books that showcase they have different cultures. It has to really be embedded in the nursery, the way the teachers teach, how they're trained, how they're supporting their parents and including their parents.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
what you're talking about, reflecting on our policies. You know,
Yeah.
this is a job for the summer break. You know,
Yes.
in my academic calendar, this is something I do during the summer break every year. But what would that look like? You know, in practicality, for inclusion but for inclusivity as well, because these are two different things,
Yeah.
right? So what would that look like in the nursery setting?
So in the nursery setting, what we've tried to really build is to have a proper inclusive policy.
Right.
That does cover a lot of elements ensuring that school readiness, not only for all the children in the nursery, but also for the children that do need that additional support. Our children of determination, special educational needs. So you do need policies that really focus on the social emotional development,
Right.
that really focus on being able to differentiate learning. How are we teaching our children in different approaches?
Yes.
How are we matching our approaches to their learning styles? So this is very important, the continuous professional development.
Like our podcast here.
Yes, representing the different cultures in your nursery so that every child feels like they're valued in that setting. Also ensuring that you're not only providing the training and the policies, but you're giving the teachers the tools, the resources to be able to put this into practice.
What would that look like, Letitia?
So this can be anything from supporting them with the resources to have adaptive seating in the class, for example. As we know, not all children are able to sit at little desks on little chairs, so having bean bags, having wobble cushions, in the nursery, even therapy rooms. As we know, a lot of children are receiving early intervention services, so having a space where people can come into the nursery and work with the child in that natural environment. So there's a lot of elements that goes into ensuring you have that proper inclusion provision so that you can truly be inclusive and support each child's individual needs.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
100%. This is profound. This is actually so informative, informing not just our primary school teachers, but our early years teams as well.
Yes.
Letitia, we spoke about cognitive skills previously, physical skills.
Yes.
How should we be preparing our children for school?
So early years, I believe there should really be a big focus on play. As we know, children, this is their job, is to play. And through play, they learn. And I believe activities like Play-Doh, threading, painting,
For those fine motor
drawing,
skills.
yes,
Which eventually is going to translate into the
their
writing skills.
Yes. So focusing on building those basic fine motor skills strengthening, gross motor skills, being out on the playground, climbing, running, swinging. So all of these activities.
What is the benefit of those? We spoke about the foundational
Yes.
skills, right? So we're building foundational skills. Can you tell our community why is it so important to build our gross motor skills through play?
Yes.
What's the end result? What are we building
Yeah.
this foundational skill for?
So by doing these skills through play, we are literally preparing their little bodies for when they're going to be in school, sitting, having to do their writing. We are giving them that upper body strength in their hands, to be able to do the different tasks. And not only for school, but later in life, whether they're going into a certain career and they might need those skills. So we're really strengthening those things from an early age so that they can better cope in school. What we do see a lot, if children do not have, for example, the upper body strength, they really struggle to sit when it's circle time, for example, or when they have to do a writing task in school, and this affects their ability to actually enjoy that task or
Yes.
focus their attention on that task. So it's really important that we do build these skills from a young age, and not to force it on a child, but somewhere in school or later in life they're going to need this.
Skill.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You
Yeah.
touched briefly on toilet training. Now, I
Yeah.
know this is priority on the list for children to be admitted into school.
Yes, it is.
So we sometimes have a huge rush at the end of the academic year to have these children toilet trained. Can
I
you give us
know.
some insight into that?
Again, yes, and I do feel this is not a nice expectation to have. As we know, all children are unique.
I don't think it's a realistic
It isn't.
expectation to
And
have.
No, and all children are unique. All children are developing at their own pace. So trying to put a time limit on when you should be ready, it's impossible.
Yeah.
And I feel this is where we as a nursery also really need to have that connection with schools. So they understand maybe the challenges we have, and to be more accommodating, especially for the children going into FS1, FS2, they're still so young. So I do feel schools need to put a bit more provision in place to support children that might not yet be fully trained.
I don't know if schools necessarily would be open to that conversation, because the support really would mean more staff
Yes.
in the school setting, to support
Yeah.
toileting.
Yes.
And I think that is one skill that I don't think they're unrealistic in having that expectation. I think the responsibility there is on the parent, and this is my perspective, please help me. I think the responsibility there is on the parent to make the informed decision to say, if my child is not yet ready,
Yes.
toilet trained, are they ready for school? And by imposing, immediate toilet training and, being able to use the bathroom independently, am I showing my child a disservice, by rushing this process? Because we know toilet training is developmental.
Yes.
It's about communication. There's so many aspects that goes into that.
Yeah.
You would know better, and you'd be able to best explain that to our audience. But we just know that there's so much skill that goes into being physically ready for using the bathroom independently, that I don't believe that it's something we should be rushing, and I don't believe then that going to school should be something that we should be rushing.
Yes. No, I agree with you. It isn't something we should be rushing. And I think where a lot of the confusion comes into is the fact that FS1, FS2 stage overlaps with nursery and school. So there's a completely different set of expectations for FS1, FS2 in a nursery setting versus what a school kind of expects.
How so?
We're looking at staff ratios, for example. So school ratios for FS1 and 2 is completely different than a nursery setting. So in a nursery where you have for FS1 one adult to 8 children, in a school it might be 1 to 12. So there is a difference in that sense. And this is, I think, where we feel a bit more pressured to prepare them, because we know that going into that FS1 in school,
the actual physical presence of
Yes,
another adult
is
might
less.
not be there.
Yes. Yes. So this is again where I think parents need to decide: is my child ready for that kind of environment, or do I want to give them that little bit more individualized support
Yes.
in the nursery
Yes,
setting?
yes.
Yeah.
So are they actually independent, is what you're saying? Are they independent of adults, and then are they able to function in this
Yes.
huge environment
Yeah.
without adult support?
Yes.
Or with very little or less adult support than they would in the nursery setting?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So what are some of the myths that we connect with school readiness?
So with school readiness, there's definitely this focus on academic skills, knowing your ABCs, your numbers, that this is the main thing children need to have in place to be ready for school. This is definitely one element where we want people to know it's not all about the academics, it's the holistic development.
Yes.
Another big myth is that children can be school ready, I believe, because I don't think any child will ever be fully school ready on the day that they start school.
Wow.
There's always going to be...
It's like you said earlier, it's a journey,
Yes.
it's a process, it's not an event.
Yes.
It's not that one day.
And I think this is so important to know. There isn't a thing as a school ready child on the first day that they start school. So having a bit more awareness of what school readiness means and understanding the bigger picture, I feel is so important.
Letitia, what are the subtle overlooked barriers that you see in inclusion and inclusivity?
Definitely with inclusion still developing a lot in early years, there are still a lot of missing pieces. I think, like we said earlier, there's a lot of focus on showing people that we're inclusive, but not a lot of focus on, are we really training our educators to be able to support inclusion, to be able to put things in practice? Are we truly accepting or valuing the different cultures, representing them in our nurseries?
Right.
So there is still a lot of missing elements that I feel like we need to focus on. And I know a lot of nurseries are really doing amazing with putting these things in place, but it's not a quick fix that we can do.
I think the first hint you gave us is our job for the summer.
Yes.
Is we're going to relook at our policies and really try to be inclusive and really try to look at our environments and are they really speaking to inclusivity?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So Letitia, one question about inclusion and school readiness that we are not asking as educators and as parents. What is one question that we're not asking that you would want us to know, to learn, to heed? Share with me.
For me, it is definitely, are we supporting our educational practitioners to be able to be inclusive, to be able to create inclusive environments and to support children's social emotional development? Like I said earlier, we are so focused on different academic skills and that we often forget to connect with children and how to connect with children. So it's so important for me that we ask ourselves, whether we're in the leadership of a nursery or a school, are we really helping our educators to understand how to be fully inclusive, how to implement the different things? It's nice to have the resources and the tools, but if we don't know how to use them, we are not going to be able to drive that kind of change.
I think a strong point that you've brought to the fore in our conversation today has really been about the partnership between educators and home and the school environment. I think that was a big one.
Yes.
And I also think that we as educational leaders, I think this is something you really honed in on. Educational leaders have our work cut out currently. And as our educators, that we take the responsibility for our own professional development and further education and training, particularly because we see additional needs on the rise. And we also see, as I mentioned earlier, the children are becoming younger and younger who are thrust into the school environment. Our tasks are huge. I don't believe it's all doom and gloom. Last words for our audience.
I just wanted to share a quick thing that I came across this year as I did training with some of our educational practitioners. I actually asked them, if you have a child or imagine a child in your life, what is one thing you want for them for their future? And every single educator actually told me they want them to be happy. They want them to have good relationships. They want them to be confident. And this just shows you this is what we need to be working towards. And this is again where that social emotional skills are so important and need to be emphasized more in school readiness. As we as parents, educators, we want this for our children in the future. So then why are we not putting this as, one of the most important things that we need to be teaching our children? So that connection in early years especially is for me so important. And it really weaves into everything that's needed for school readiness and for the child's journey into adulthood. So that's kind of where I'll leave you today. Yes.
Thank you. Letitia, a wonderful, wonderful pleasure. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your heart for our early years community. I'm certainly looking forward to having our further conversations online. I'm sure our audience on Instagram will have lots of questions on the week that our episode is. So we're looking forward to connecting there, yeah?
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Inclusivity and inclusion for school readiness. Certainly an interesting and profound conversation today with Letitia Petrie. How will you carry forward the reflections that we've unpacked in our episode today? If this episode resonated with you, let's continue the conversation on Instagram. Our episodes go live on Wednesday evenings on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. It has been an absolute pleasure having Letitia Petrie in studio with us today. This is Let's Talk Early Years.